As Old as Time, Part 2. A Decision and Its Consequences. He threw out his hands as best he could, indicating the room, or the castle, or the world. We're stuck here. Forever. The spiderwebs will cover the whole castle soon, completing the curse. Belle looked up at the ceiling, at the walls, hoping an answer or something would materialize. The corners of the room were shadowy, and angles leapt back and forth as the fire danced and casted eerie lights. She realized with a slow blink of her eyes that her overwhelming feeling at that moment wasn't fear. It was exhaustion. It was being overwhelmed. It was her brain, the one that her father had always praised her for, suddenly being overtaxed and overfull. All she wanted to do was sit quietly in a corner and think. Think about the wisps of ideas she had about her mother. For instance, she had somehow always thought of her mother having auburn hair. Sort of like her own hair, but redder. Not blonde. Why had she gotten it so wrong? Isn't the first thing a child describes about a parent the hair color? She had no idea what it smelled like either. She couldn't summon a single sensory image of her mother holding her. All her mind did was shortcut the memory by alluding to loving scenes in books she had read. Everything from nursery rhymes to fairy tales to picaresques. The picture she had in her head now, of angelic retribution, didn't exactly conform to what she thought her mother, any mother, would be like. She wasn't a mother at all in the scene. She was a woman, a person, doing things that had nothing to do with Belle. Nothing to do with me. She never had anything to do with me. She rubbed her temples and glanced over at the beast. She should have been afraid. He was a big, violent beast who could easily kill her a dozen different ways, but he had saved her from the wolves. Surely he didn't mean to hurt her, and he spoke like a mostly normal human, something that could be reasoned with. She thought about Gaston, the only other big beast-like thing she knew who spoke. He would have been a lot slower on the uptake about everything. Their conversation would have been a lot longer and more frustrating, and he would have tried to marry her at some point. He was human and utterly impossible to communicate or negotiate with. With a sigh, Belle got up and began to untie the ropes. The beast stayed still until she was finished, being careful not to move at all while following her movements with his wide and suspicious eyes. Why are you doing that? She shrugged. As you say, nothing much matters anymore. We're here for a while, at least. May as well trust each other. When she was finished, he flexed his claws experimentally. As he rose out of the chair, he winced, grinding his teeth in pain from his wounds. If we could find my mother, Belle said slowly, thinking. If she's not dead or something, maybe she could reverse the curse. How would we find her? The beast grumbled, massaging one paw with the other. Do you still have the mirror? The one she gave you? Even as she asked, she remembered the other thing on the table with the rose. The ornate silver hand mirror, lying there so innocently. That lets you see everywhere? The magic mirror, the beast said, eyebrows rising. Yes, we could consult it. Great, let's go consult the magic mirror, she repeated, unable to believe she was saying those words out loud. Why not? And maybe afterwards we can go visit the witch in her woods and break off a bit of her candy house for a snack. The beast looked at her, confused, his eyebrows rising even higher, like dark clouds above his blue eyes. Never mind, Belle said with a sigh. It was a joke. For the second time, Belle found herself going up the stairs into the forbidden wing. Her feelings were entirely different now. She was exhausted and unafraid. The whisperings of the shadows and creakings of animated suits of armor held no terror against the whirl of images and thoughts in her head. Blonde and green and lightning-colored thoughts with her mother's face again and again. That look of disappointment and triumph that wasn't altogether pleasing. The beast hesitated a moment at the demon-handled doors of his room. It made Belle think of the scene from some book in which a boy, somewhat embarrassed, showed his family home or a private room to a girl he liked. Fear of disappointing the guest, fear she would discover something uncouth about the host. Like there could be anything worse than torn-up furniture, nests, and bones everywhere, Belle thought wearily. He let her go first, which is chivalrous, although unwanted. The room was cold, and the curtains still flapping, not inviting in the slightest. What picture is this? She asked, indicating the carefully mangled one, the portrait of the young man with blue eyes. The beast deflated his giant shoulders, hunching over his neck and head. It's me." He reached out a delicate claw and pulled all the strips of canvas back into place. The prince was revealed yet again, tall and handsome and arrogantly looking into the viewer's eyes, challenging them to keep looking. "The enchanters put a spell on it so it would age with me, and show me how I would look if I was still human, if I hadn't failed her test. I'm always reminded of who I could have been." Belle cocked her head and really looked at the picture. It was painted by a consummate artist. The velvet on the prince's jacket looked soft and furry enough to touch. But those eyes... "I'm not so sure it should make you feel bad," she finally said. "The man in that picture looks contemptuous, self-important." The beast looked at her, shocked. "Well, it does," she said, waving a hand to indicate the prince's face. "It's supposed to show what you would look like on the outside, but does it show who you really are now, on the inside?" The beast dropped the canvas strips in disgust and swung away, muttering something about meaningless words. Belle almost smiled despite their circumstances. There were moments when she almost enjoyed talking with the beast, poking at him gently. She followed him over to the table. The wind had dropped and now everything was strangely still. There wasn't enough breeze to flutter a single rose petal. The beast took one sharp breath upon seeing the destroyed flower, then made himself look away. Belle felt her heart sink. It really was her fault. Maybe he could have had a few more weeks until the curse was complete anyway, but those would have been a few more weeks of hope, and who knows, maybe the magic would have sent someone, some nice peasant girl, to lift the hex. Maybe her mother had a plan that wouldn't have kept this poor beast in his damned state forever. With far more gentleness than she would have guessed those massive paws were capable of, he picked up the mirror and cradled it lovingly. At first it seemed like no more than a fancy princess's vanity object, decorated with roses and what looked like abstract beastly faces on it. "What can it do?" Belle asked politely. "Oh, it can show me anything," the beast said eagerly. "Anything real. I've seen mountains in the Far East that are always covered in snow, and Paris at Christmas time with all of the lights and festivals and markets." Belle pushed a stray bit of her hair back behind her ear. "You can see the entire world in that?" "Yes, look." He held it out for her. At first, there was nothing but the silvery surface, and her own skeptical face. Belle couldn't help fixing another stray lock of hair neatly behind her ear. She had rarely examined herself with such a fine glass that wasn't thrilled with how a few blocked pores looked in its illuminative depths. And was that a tiny scar next to her eye? She had never noticed it. "Mirror, show me Paris," the beast commanded. Mists fogged the image like he had breathed on it. When they cleared, Belle was so surprised she was glad she wasn't the one holding the mirror. She might have dropped it. As real as if it were happening right in front of her through a window. She could see shining carriages hurtling through cobbled streets, fancy ladies and gentlemen dressed in fashions she only read about, buildings and shops and fountains and streets like the entire world was filled with them. So many people, from aristocratic Dayanese attended by uniformed maids to merchants with smart but patched hats, to waifs, beggars, little hungry kids with feral eyes, dodging amongst everyone trying to earn a few pennies, or steal them. Belle was speechless. If she had a mirror like this, she might not ever have bothered to read. She could see an entire world full of stories, right here. Then she realized she was lingering on, trying to hear what people were saying, to smell their perfumes, to feel the city air on her face. Nothing. It was a strangely cold experience despite the beauty of the picture. "This is my favorite thing," the beast said sadly. "My only thing. I could see the world I'm missing, the life I would have had." Belle frowned as he took the mirror back to look on himself. "But if you have this mirror, and you know what you need to break the spell, why don't you use it to help you?" she asked. "You could have used it to find a girl, maybe, or..." With a snarl, the beast shoved the mirror back in her face. "Mirror, show me the red-headed boy." The image changed. Now it was of a child whose hands were grotesque, like a lobster, with only 2 large thick fingers on each hand and a thumb. He was behind bars that he gripped with his awkward digits. He stood in a tub of water. In front of him people were laughing and jeering, and in the case of one gentleman, poking at his claws with a cane. The saddest thing was not the restrained violence of the scene, but how resigned the boy looked, how empty his eyes were, how we could see this was his lot in life forever. If they do this to a child, what do you think they'll do to a beast? Belle bit her lip. She had no answer. Besides, the meaningless and small-mindedness of the townspeople, she had never seen any real cruelty, at least not outside a book. She wanted to touch the boy's cheeks. She wanted to throw up. She wanted to... The beast took the mirror away. Just like that stupid hunter in that village over the river probably wants to put my pelt on his floor like a rug, he muttered. Gaston? Belle asked, shocked. You mean Gaston? I don't know anyone's names. Can't hear anything, he said, shaking the mirror. He always comes into the forest and shoots anything large, pretty, or different looking, or just moving. Other hunters come and go, getting deer or birds for meat. I have no problem with that, but this man, he just wants to kill and stuff everything. He doesn't need meat. Bill decided to file that away. The beast said meat later to think more fully. He was a several 100-pound beast and obviously didn't eat toast to keep his weight up. If I tried to leave the castle, they'd do that. Tie me up and make me a display at a circus. If I was lucky, the beast continued. So I watch the world from here. It's safer. Safer, except that's no way to break the spell, Belle pointed out. The beast shrugged impatiently. You want to find your mother? Yes, Belle said. Let's see. Mirror, show me the enchantress who put this curse on me. The image faded, and the mirror became foggy, a strange gray that didn't reflect a silver that wasn't shiny. It's never done that before, the beast said in wonder, shaking it again as if to fix it. Can I try? Mirror, show me my father, Belle commanded before the beast could answer. Maurice appeared, looking miserable, bouncing around the insides of the wheelless carriage and trying to look out its window back to the castle. Belle felt her heart could burst. Papa! Does he know where your mother is? The beast asked eagerly. What? No, Belle said, distracted. He never talked about her, really. I thought it was because he was upset by whatever made her leave, but now I think maybe he just somehow doesn't remember her the same way I don't. Humph. Show me the enchantress, the beast said, pulling the mirror away from her. But the image faded again, to the same strange gray. But my father, Belle began again. What about him? He needs me. He raised you by himself, didn't he? Seems like he's done more than an all-right job. He'll be fine for a few days on his own, the beast pointed out. Belle glared at him. My father couldn't. He didn't make their meals, tend the garden, earn coin for cosmobilities. They couldn't grow or forge themselves, spend days inventing, all things he did before she was old enough to help him, when he was taking care of her. Her lip quivered. Of course he was fine. Wait. You think he did a more than all-right job? She couldn't help asking. The beast shrugged, suddenly embarrassed. She found herself smiling. Was he almost smiling back? In his eyes, at least. After a moment, grim reality set in again. Now what? The beast asked, indicating the failed mirror. But Belle was exhausted and out of ideas. I don't know. It's been a long day. I'm very tired. He did give her a smile this time, albeit a wan one. Me too. Might as well go to bed, he said, shrugging. I guess we have forever to figure this out, Belle said softly. As they turned to go back through the door, they walked together side by side, in companionable, if wistful, silence. They didn't speak until the beast had walked her all the way back to her bedroom door. Belle started to open the door, then stopped. She never found words hard. Her whole life she had always had a pert answer or a gentle insult or a funny reprisal to anything the villagers said to her. Now she found that pulling them from her heart, and not her mind, felt like dragging something jagged and reluctant out of a well. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I really am. I shouldn't have touched the rose. She made herself look straight into his eyes, his very un-animal eyes. Beast gave her a sad smile. You were my prisoner. Why would you listen to anything I said? And it wouldn't have mattered. Anyway, you're right. I wouldn't have broken the curse on my own. He looked down at his feet. Silence gathered over them like a soft snow. Good night, Belle said finally, opening the door and stepping inside. But the beast, black as shadow and twice as silent, was already gone.